Okay. This is going to be a very somber one.
Somber.
Yeah, and when I say somber, maybe we can lay like some funeral music over the background of me saying this. Welcome to F1 or F off, your audio pit stop for F1 news, interviews, and race reviews. I'm your host, Idris.
And I'm Gabe.
We are here
Sad. No,
today.
what? I mean, I would, when you said funeral music, I just hear dun 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 dun
you
dun 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 dun.
it's
It's
funny
just
because I
that.
don't think that's like the actual funeral music, but no, no, I think
No.
that's what pops in people's mind. Isn't that is that the Frankenstein theme? That's what I think of,
Oh
or
God,
Dracula.
I don't remember honestly. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out because I'll probably look for it. But
yeah.
um, no, yeah. Well, yeah. So, though, if you're confused why we're trying to be somber here, I don't even think we need to be somber. I think this is a joyous occasion.
It is. It is.
Um,
It is. It is.
you celebrate good times. Come on, bum, 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 the celebration. Um, yeah. So, Idris and I have alluded to this. Um, I think last episode or maybe the episode before,
Oh, we've been talking
we've
about it
been
for a
saying
minute.
it. Yeah, we've been saying it a couple of times that like quote unquote big things
Hmm.
are coming to the podcast, and what we mean by that is that we are going to, as of this, coming up soon here, yeah, we're gonna go through a bit of a rebrand, a bit of a change. I don't really want to give away all the details just yet because I kind
Not
of
just
want to
yet.
leave some stuff to some surprise. But um, that is basically to say that this might be the last official F1 or F off
Yeah.
podcast episode. Um,
It feels
which
wild to say
we
that, right?
it is weird. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about F1. But yeah, I'm sure if any of our real astute listeners, um, those of you out there, the nerds, you might have noticed that kind of coinciding with some of our inconsistencies as far as posting, um, it also has come with a little bit of change to where we've been talking about different things that are not just F1. Like we talk about IndyCar, or we go to Idris went to a rally event. We
Hmm.
talked about like rally stuff. Um, and essentially, I think we at one point we realized that we're kind of boxing ourselves in a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and I think it's getting to that point to where it's not really that it's not fun, but that it's just more tedious than we were wanting it to be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, at least on my end, has to was because of like sort of the sort of structure can like kind of restraint of it.
Hmm.
I mean, we're creative people, but we're not as quick as some of those Gen Z or guys out there, who are like just pumping out content.
Yeah.
And part of that is just like we try and like think like, what could we talk about? What could be part of it? But also be like, we have a lot of lives. There's been a lot of changes
Hmm.
going on in both of our lives.
Yeah.
And we also don't want to just like doing this podcast has opened up my exploration of motorsports generally, and
Hmm.
also my like kind of where I feel like I fit into the car world writ large,
Yeah.
um as a enthusiast, if you I guess you could say. um and so yeah, I think ultimately I think what kind of prompted this is that we got kind of getting a little burnt out, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we were feeling that? Was it because of like Max winning so much? Like was it I have a few reasons, but I'm
No,
curious what yours are.
that's a great question. I think for me, and I think it's probably the same for both of us, right? I do really like that you pointed out that it's like the structure that we have to kind of stay within, right? And I think what didn't help was knowing that it's like a sprint race weekend. Like I
Mm.
don't know about you, but anytime I see that it's a sprint race weekend, my heart like sinks because it's like, and like that's not what should happen, right? It should be like,
Mm.
oh, there's more F1 to watch, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But
well, just to clarify, what you mean by a sprint race weekend is not a sprint race weekend, but a weekend where there isn't a race that happens, and so we're like we need to find something else to talk about, right? Is that what you were talking about when you say a
oh,
sprint race
oh
weekend?
no. Like when it's actually a sprint race weekend,
Oh,
right?
really? Oh,
Yeah, because
okay.
like,
Oh,
and that's why. So it might be different for you, just because like I want to be as engaged with like something I'm talking about, right, as much as possible, right? And for Formula One, that means I'm watching as much of the practice sessions as I can. And truth be
mhm.
told, the practice sessions, it's always like highlights and clips I'm watching
Yeah,
and seeing
yeah.
headlines and like reading into things and reading forums and threads. But then watching quali, looking at analysis, watching the race, looking at analysis, that kind of stuff, right? And then you throw in the sprint race on top of that. And then it's just like do that for practice sessions, do that for the sprint race practice session. Oh no, practice sessions. Do that for sprint quality. Do that for quality. Do that for the race. It's just like I know it's just another event, but it feels it's actually another two events, right? So you've
Hmm.
doubled the mental energy and capacity you need to apply and allocate towards this thing that you do on the weekends for fun as a hobby. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I want to make sure when we're talking to you all of our listeners, first off, thank you so much for listening to us for so long and sticking with us and riding out with us and being
Yeah.
patient with us. But I want to make sure we're educated and like speaking in like we are speaking from a well-informed place when we're talking about things. We don't want to just be like a headline podcast, right? Like you guys know those YouTubers that have like those certain cutouts and it's just their face reacting to something like that's kind of
Hmm.
fun to do, right? But at the same time, we don't want to be that. Like Gabe
Oh,
and
yeah.
I, we like really, really love Formula One, like
Mm.
deeply, right?
We're
Like
we're
it,
gonna circle back to that though because I do have some very strong feelings about that because I just
sure.
saw something earlier today I want to tell you about. But keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't want to be that. We want to like have really fun, engaging conversations. And like you guys are hearing a lot of like the banter and jokes that Gabe and I have, like even on a personal basis, right? Like Gabe and I have known each other since what? We're going on like 17, 18 years now, maybe.
Whenever Redline came out,
Yeah, Redline
I
the
think like
movie.
we
Oh,
knew
it was
each
like a
other.
year before that.
I think we met before that, but we didn't really become friends until we saw Redline. I think, at
Yeah.
least in my mind, that was like when
That's when
it
it
was like
solidified. That
it was almost like a trauma bonding moment, but like not really trauma. It was like,
and for those who want to know what what that secret is, maybe one day we'll talk about it on a Patreon on the on something else. maybe.
maybe, yeah,
Um
bonus content. I'm
yeah,
not
but
gonna.
extremely
You
bonus
gotta pay
content.
for that.
Dude,
Yeah.
that we would need to have an OnlyFans and a Patreon for that and just like it was not that was no bueno.
OnlyFans.
No bueno. Um
Can we
but
start an OnlyFans?
yeah, anyone
Like
can have an
let's not
OnlyFans.
do like
It's
let's not do like Patreon. Let's do OnlyFans. Like for real. Like
yeah,
you
just
could
head to our
still it's the
OnlyFans
same
page.
thing.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
mean
like
honestly,
and how many people out there already have an account?
I'm
Oh
sure it wouldn't
man.
be hard for people to just say like hit the search menu and then hey sub.
Oh. And
But
we could post the titles of our videos can sound really like salacious and
yeah,
suggestive,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just an episode.
Black
Oh.
and white guy go in on a car. Like whoa.
Oh. Oh, whoa.
Time out.
Oh.
um but yeah, no, it's like this is what I'm talking about, right? This is Gabe and I are like this like in real life, like
Yeah.
outside of just talking about Formula One. We do this like
Yeah.
we have jokes about everything, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like sometimes we're not able to really just be like I guess I don't know as spontaneous and as authentic as we would like to be, right?
Yeah.
Not saying we
Yeah.
put a face on for this or anything, but like being within like a structure of like,
Hmm.
hey, we need to talk about the track and we need to talk about
Yeah.
the practice session and the quality and the race and like
Yeah.
I don't know, we're still going to talk about Formula One, but not in this way where it feels like it's a chore to watch the events and like
Right.
because I pay money, right? I pay for F1
Mhm.
TV, right? And
Yeah. Right.
we've paid money to go to races and events and stuff. And I want to make sure that love is still there. And like to maintain that love, it's important to like alter my relationship and approach with it right now. And I
Yeah.
think it's the same for Gabe.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm gonna throw you back. Okay, like our first podcasts, our first episodes.
Yeah.
There was stuff that I did that I don't do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There was stuff that we did because we thought we needed to do it,
Right.
but we don't. And there's things that I enjoyed doing, but it was a lot of work, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like the like old, newsreel recaps of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun, but that was work.
That's a lot of work for
And
both of us.
like it
Yeah.
was a lot of work to throw in right at the beginning of a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's stuff you do once you're like already got the ball rolling and like you're
Mm-hmm.
like, got a bunch of people smashing likes and subscribes. Um, and like I appreciate everybody who enjoys that. And if
Mm-hmm.
you haven't, if you don't know, if you're a relatively new listener, you haven't heard it, the first few episodes of races, I think right at the beginning, I do like a newsreel style recap. I don't remember how many I did. I think maybe like five
It's
or
like,
so.
yeah, a handful.
But yeah, there, go back and listen, even if you haven't, like you could watch a race, like if you could like look up like, oh, like 2023, blah 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 race recap, and then you get the events in your head and then listen to what I say about it, and then you can get a laugh out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
And we also had the
but
race rap recap, right? I did that, I
we
think,
yeah,
once, and I had like another rap like half written. I was just like, this is a lot of work right
it's a
now.
lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it's
Yeah.
like it's a lot of work for seemingly a small amount of payoff. And because I think it's just like I think our approach at first was that like I think we were putting the icing on the cake before we baked it. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm.
It's like, and I think that like I think we found out like, hey, it's good icing, you know, but like we didn't have the cake put together yet. And I
Yeah.
think like we sort of found that like it's sort of like, yeah, it worked its way in reverse. I also did a ton of editing, like vocal stuff. I took out like
Mm.
every that I could find,
Or,
or
mhm.
every gap, every pause, I would cut. And man, that took editing like editing an hour long episode like that was like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot. And
Hmm.
I realized listening to other people who did this, nobody's editing that much.
Yeah.
They'll edit out some stuff, and if you
Hmm.
have time to do it, and you have a lot of, if it's a special episode, like if it's like a unique thing, like you do it right because you want to make it look good, but or hear sound good. But I realized that like most of our just normal content episodes, we didn't
Yeah.
really need to do that. Like because the conversation just flows as it does. Like everyone's used
Right.
to people talking naturally,
Hmm.
and the I want to sound as human as possible and get far away from sounding like an AI person as I can. So I'm gonna leave in all the human error. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I just think I think it's just it flows better. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you that like I found myself like you and I have our banter, right? And a lot of times that will happen before an episode. Like we'll just like go off on a tangent for 20 minutes before you even start it, and like none of it's relevant
Yeah.
to the race, and so we
Yeah.
can use it.
Right.
And so my initial thought, and I don't remember. I don't remember when we had this conversation, but I remember that when we had this conversation, like
Yeah.
the contents of it, when I proposed to you the idea of like restructuring or like rebranding, kind of doing a reset, you
Hmm.
were just like, oh, like I'm so glad you brought this up because I
Yes.
just been thinking about this, like,
Yeah.
and some
Yeah.
of it, yeah, so and some of that kind of ties into the fact that like, um it's weird. Like F1 for me for a really long time was just like it was just like me and watching the races, and then like that's all I had.
Hmm.
But now it's like there's so much content out there. People are so
So
on it so
much.
fast,
Yeah.
and also like, and I want to talk about this too. I feel that. Well, I want to talk about it later. I want to finish what we're talking about
All
with the
right.
state of the
Type
podcast,
that
but
in the
we're
chat so
gonna
you
get
don't
back.
forget it.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to it. Well, I have it in our notes, so I'll
Okay.
I'll remember to get to it. I just don't want to like bog it down with this, but yeah, basically, I think essentially, we're still gonna talk about races, right?
Hmm.
We're still gonna talk about
Races,
F1
races, not
races.
racist.
Yes, we are going to talk about RACES
I mean, we
races.
could talk about races and talk about how they're dumb, but yeah, that's cool.
Yes, we can. Um,
See, this is what I'm
uh,
talking about. This is the stuff I get to
um,
do.
yeah.
I love just like lighting a fire in your game sometimes. You're
Yeah,
like, oh.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're the waiter taking the my sizzling hot fajita
Mhm.
takes order and then bringing them out. Um,
Bruh.
bruh. Um, but yeah, so we're still going to talk about F1. We're still going to talk about everything that happens with that. But what's going to change is that we're just going to loosen up the conversation. You know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
going to talk about more than that because we've both of us, I could say pretty safely, have become IndyCar fans now
Yeah.
along the way. But
In
we're also like
NASCAR and
NASCAR. Yeah,
rally.
we're
Yeah.
exploring things like NASCAR and rallying and World Endurance Championship stuff and Formula E and then even outside the racing world, just the car world in general.
Hmm.
Like, we have conversations about the car market. We talk about racing video games. We talk we talk about like racing elements in games.
Hmm.
We'll talk about even like car marketing and like
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff that's like automotive related or
Yeah.
car related, but like because it's not relevant to an F1 thing specifically, and that's what the name of our show is, it just didn't feel right.
Hmm.
And I think I'm definitely looking forward to being able to talk about that stuff, but also giving it a flexibility to where if for some reason I can't be there, for an episode or something, like you could do something on your own if you wanted to, like
Exactly.
we do.
Yeah.
Or what I was also planning on doing is making some maybe like essay style long format
Hmm.
things, like writing up a script, talking about a subject, throwing in a bunch of like sound effects and clips from interviews and things of that nature, about certain subjects I want to talk about in that motorsport world or in that sort of world in general. I want to try and do that as a creative endeavor. And obviously that's
Right.
going to take a long time, but those can also be included.
Right.
And I think that having a restructure will facilitate that,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And guys, we have so many exciting things planned for you all.
Mm,
There's been a really, really fun interactive element to I'm not gonna say what it is, but it's been in the works for a while, right? Um, and I think you know what I'm talking about, hopefully, because there are a couple of things we've been talking about.
hmm
But um, there's some things we're ready to deploy once we have this new podcast structure up because again, calling ourselves F1 or F off, it wasn't well suited for that, right? But
Yeah.
now that we are pivoting to this new structure and this new name, right, it's going to
Mm,
allow us to kind of bring that into the fold, right? We are now
right.
allowed to do that creatively, we feel.
Right. Right. And I mean, I think like at this point too, like it's funny. I was thinking about this with our name. I remember initially when we were coming up with names, the main criticism we had for F1 over F off was like, it sounds really aggressive. It
Yeah.
sounds really combative. And I was just like, no, it's a play on words. You don't know. But now that I think about it, I'm like, here's the thing. I think you know how they say that like, people are smarter than you think.
Hmm.
I think they're also dumber than you think. I think it's like both. Not to say that people are dumb. What I'm saying though is that like if we
Oh my god.
assume that people are going to take this as like a play on words, there's probably an equal amount of people who are going to be like, "Oh, so they only like F1? Screw those guys." And like I don't want to give off that vibe,
Hmm.
like I know my brother Ben is really upset because he was the one that came up with that name.
Hmm.
And so and I'm grateful because I couldn't come up with that on my own.
Hmm.
And I think it served us for what we had it with. But
Yeah.
um but yeah, I'm hoping that the new branding will sort
Yeah.
of bring in more of a vibe that like we're like millennials who grew up on Need for Speed and Gran Turismo and Forza, and we love cars and we want to talk
Yeah.
about racing and car
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
And
Um yeah.
I was gonna say, and F1 or F off is not going away. Like we're still F1 or F off. We're still FOOFO fam, right? We're gonna like tag our posts and everything as such, right?
Sure, yeah.
Um,
I think
like we're
like we
going. Yeah, good.
I was gonna say I feel like our F1 segments, like when we talk about F1
Oh
on the
yeah,
podcast, whether
it's gonna
it's
be F1 or F off.
episode or yeah, then that's what we're gonna call it. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
gonna keep that, but
yeah.
like it's just gonna basically mushroom out into a
Mm-hmm.
bigger umbrella, you know. So
Yeah.
so basically, I guess we have to come up with names for other things too, like
Mm-hmm.
IndyCar or Get Out of the Car or something. I don't know.
IndyCar, get out.
Yeah,
IndyCar, out of car.
yeah,
That's
something.
good.
I don't know.
That's not
We gotta
bad. That's
think.
not bad.
Gotta think of something else. But
Oh man,
yeah.
I can appreciate a good dad joke. Um, actually, so with that, are we unveiling the name here? I mean, by
Mm-mm.
the time you guys hear this,
No,
it's gonna be okay. So it's
no.
gonna be a super secret drop. Okay, yeah, no, you
I
guys
don't
will
want
find
that. I
out.
don't want that name. You'll see what the name is as
Yeah,
we
you will
post it.
know. Yeah,
You
you
will
will
know
know. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think day 6, right? So
probably.
you will all know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe by Saturday or Sunday,
I
you'll
have
be
to
able to
look
know what
up
it is.
how. I have to look up at what sequence to post these
That's what I'm
things
saying. If you
to make sure
upload
that the
it,
picture
yeah, if
like
you
shows
upload
up
it,
right.
that's what I'm saying. If you upload it like from the bottom right, I'm looking at the image now.
Yeah,
It's gonna be, yeah,
because
by day
that's
six or
how it
seven.
goes, right? It's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they sort of move from
Yep.
left to right, right,
Yep.
as you
Yep. Yep.
go.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I basically have to do the opposite of that. So
Yeah.
bottom right and then
Mm-hmm.
move
And
left.
it'll
Okay.
keep, yeah. So
And then it'll do it.
by
Okay.
Saturday the 24th or Saturday the 25th, you all should have an idea of what the name is. So this episode's gonna drop on Tuesday. So if you're listening to it today, hey, then you got the heads up over others.
Mm,
And
that's
you'll
good.
know officially by the 27th because we'll be recording our episode that weekend officially under the new name and drop it that day. And
Mm.
we'll be running 100 miles per hour at that point, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be yeah, it should be good. I think we should be ready. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah. So
And I mean, and like, you know, I think our original goal is the same. Like, we're here to celebrate motorsport. We're here to
mhm,
talk about racing. We're here to make friends and expand our own love and care of the sport. So, I mean, really, our F1 or F off was successful in that because it
mhm,
has expanded our love for motorsport generally.
yeah,
And we have
and our
met,
network of friends and yeah,
yes, we met many people. I mean, shout out to everybody that we've had on the podcast, including like Shanali and Tiernan and Elizabeth Blackstock, Lannis, Reagan, even Damon,
yeah,
you know,
Marcus
Marcus Smith,
Smith.
who's
Actually, that's
we
a
had
shirt. Yeah,
on,
repping the shirt
yeah,
right there. Check them
we
out.
had on early episodes. So, you know, and I'm hoping to, you know, meet more people, have more interactions, but then also have like our friends come back. You know, I want it to be an environment that we could, you know, have people on for discussions like this, you know.
Mhm,
So, you know, fingers crossed.
yeah.
But yeah.
So one question I want to ask, right? What's
Mhm.
been your most favorite memory of F1 or F off?
Mm, man. I mean, I love all of the episodes that we had talking with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I think my favorite thing was seeing the reactions when I would send the photoshops of like the custom F1 teams, you
Yeah.
know. Because I had a lot of fun putting those together, and
Mm-hmm.
so like it was really fun to see the reaction from that,
Yeah.
and all the little details that I managed to put in. I think I feel like the big honestly the my favorite episodes are the ones where we weren't necessarily covering a race, but
Mm-hmm.
we're doing our news segments and we were talking about the drama, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy some of those earlier episodes. We were talking about like the history of F1 and like stuff. And it's another thing too that's really fun. And so we can talk about other
More
things. Like I
history
definitely
stuff.
want to
Yeah.
have a discussion about the Andretti curse in IndyCar for the Indy 500. Definitely want to talk about that because
Yeah.
that's the other thing I was telling you. I've said this before on the Instagram. I have been systematically watching all of the Indy 500s, all of the
Mm-hmm.
Daytona 500s, and I want to do the Monaco races, but I have to get in the F1 app for that because all of those are on YouTube. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm learning a lot of like background context, um, driver names recognition
Yeah.
and just getting a sense of the air. And I mean, I'm talking full races. I'm not talking highlights. Like
Yeah.
I'm sitting there at work, I'm fixing guitars, and I just have my phone there going, and I have my
Hmm.
headphones in, and I'm just working and just listening, and it's fascinating.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of historical stuff that we can talk about from that. Like we should have an
Yeah.
episode about Group B rally racing because that
Dude.
whole thing is was a whole saga, and there's so many stories in that. So,
Whole lot of pain and trauma and suffering too. Like
yes.
a
Oh yeah.
lot of deaths.
But a lot of technical innovation and things of that
Hmm.
nature too. So, yeah. So I think yeah that honestly that I think there's a lot of things, but I would say my favorite parts are just the episodes that we had with friends and
Yeah.
whatnot. So, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah. That would be if you hadn't said that, I would say that. But to, not look at your homework and copy it. I would
Hmm.
say like the genuine, really funny moments while while we're recording, right? Where you say something and I just lose it, or vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that our friendship is still like really tight through this, right? Over the years and how it's developed, and like our humor is still there, no matter the scenario, and we can still make each other laugh.
Hmm. Yeah.
um,
Well, and like we
yeah,
laugh easier when we're not talking about it's funny, like we laugh easier when we're not directly always talking about the race too. Like
yeah,
sometimes it's
yeah.
just some other random thing.
Hmm.
Like for example, I wanted to tell you too, on the subject of F1 media.
Hmm.
Um, it's getting weird out there, man.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I like there is part of the reason why I was not following social like F1 stuff when I was watching earlier in my lifetime, like in 2014, like 20, like 12, 2013. I mean, part of it was because there wasn't really much of a, existence.
It was kind of quiet. Yeah.
But now, man, it's just the clickbait is real.
Hmm.
I mean, really bad. There was, I mean, I'm not going to shout out any names or say anything specifically, but I did see a post of somebody who, it was like a reel,
Hmm.
and the cap of the reel was like a picture of Max Verstappen getting out of the car and it said Red Bull cheated or something, and I'm like, what? And I looked at it because the clickbait worked,
Hmm.
and I started watching this video, and this guy starts rambling about like Red Bull possibly cheating
Yeah.
or not, no, not even them possibly cheating. He was talking about how they won the first 5 races and they were super dominant, but then there was a drop off in performance and that their upgrades were not working. And he like talked about how the failure in the one race, what was it, Austria or
Yeah.
Australia or
Where?
something, when he had the
Yeah. Yeah.
brake fail. It was Australia. He had the
Hmm.
brake
Yeah.
failure, right?
Austria. Austria.
And then he said, oh, like, that was, he's like, was that them cheating? I don't know. And then the video ends. And I'm like, are
Yeah.
you like, that feels like it feels like an internet crime. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like internet false advertising.
Police.
Like, I just like, if you're gonna, I just like, they did that for the clicks. And I hate that I clicked on it because like I thought that
Oh,
it was breaking news. I thought there was some thing
yeah.
because remember how I talked about how I thought that the Red Bulls were cheating, but like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, it just like that made me that
Oh
triggered
my
me
god,
in this way that I'm like, oh
Gabe,
no.
that was
And
like,
so
I gotta
what?
say, that was the most suburban Karen mom thing I've ever heard. That felt like an internet crime.
I mean, I felt
Someone needs to do
duped.
something. Stop them.
He got my
Stop them.
interaction and then he got money for it, and that bothers me. It's like if you're gonna take
Oh
my
my
like
god.
my view, like at least make it worth my while. Like in the whole
Oh
and
my
like in the
goodness.
video, like he like stumbles a few times, but like the
Hmm.
production value was super high, and
Hmm.
it's probably because he used like a service that like
Hmm.
does the whole thing.
Hmm.
I mean, it's possible he did some of the stuff because like they pulled images and videos from the races themselves. So like I'm sure you probably have to manually input that. So I'm sure there was some
Sure.
work involved. But it's still like I'm just like, man, that's not good content. Or like how like every time you hear like these posts every time where it's just like, should Perez leave? Or it's just like a picture of like Yuki in a Red Bull outfit and like
Hmm.
Max in a RBF, and it's like who would win? And I'm like, oh God, do you guys have to? This is like, you know what this reminds me of?
Hmm.
Okay. If you're a guitar player out there, you will relate. But if you're ever in a conversation in a room full of guitar players in a
Oh
guitar
boy,
shop,
I know. Yep, I know what you're
nine
about to
times out of 10,
say.
somebody is going to bring up Jimi Hendrix or Van Halen, and it's going to drive you crazy. You know, it's like, it's like, yes, we know Hendrix was amazing. We
Yeah,
don't need to keep having this conversation. And I
yeah.
feel the same way with Max.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to try and adjudicate who is better. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we know, I know that those pages are only designed to get people to interact. That
Yeah,
is the only reason why they exist.
yeah,
And it feels,
and it works.
it works, but that feels icky. It feels
Yeah,
gross.
yeah.
It's like when you realize how the sausage is made, or like, you know, of this process, and you
Mm-hmm.
realize like, oh, I'm being manipulated into
Mm-hmm.
giving them more engagement off
Yeah,
of this dumb post. It's like
yep,
they're rage baiting it, and
yeah,
it really bothers me.
yeah,
It genuinely does.
yeah,
And I'm just gonna say we're not gonna do that. Or
yeah,
if we do, we're gonna make it so ridiculous that it's
yeah.
clearly parody. Like,
Right. Yeah, yeah. Because like I'm not. We have we have like a limited number of hours in the day, right? And like
mhm,
the creative outlets that we have, such as this, I want it to be of high quality and of substance, right? Where someone
right.
can either get a laugh or a smile or something, some knowledge out of it, right? But yeah, no, I feel you for sure. I think that it's yeah, it's definitely, and it's in a weird place because that's just what happens when a sport gets something, right? Like it can be a
Mhm.
sport, it can be an event, whatever it is, gets very popular, right? Um, kind of okay. So let's use this as an example, right? You watch the Olympics. Did you watch Ray Gun's breakdance breakdance
I
performance?
didn't watch it, but I
Where you
feel like
you
I
seen the
watched it.
okay, okay.
Like, I've seen
So
so many of the things that like
of the
I kind
clips,
of feel like I was there.
yeah, yeah.
But I know I wasn't. Like,
Okay,
I didn't watch it. I just saw the aftermath.
okay. So I watched it like not live. I was watching the replay, and I was just
Okay.
like, I was like, okay, this is definitely this is something, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, and to be fair, I thought she did like an okay job, right? I think the difference in performances between her and oh my god, I forget the name of the dancer she was the B girl she was breaking against. But anyways, like there were like two completely different styles, right? It's like very dynamic style was that was the American who's the B girl again. I'm forgetting her name versus Reagan, who seems to be more focused on minor movements and slides, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but I bring this up just to say that she is just getting roasted online, right? Like she
Mhm.
is getting like obliterated online, and it's it's awful from like a mental health bullying perspective because
Yeah.
I can't imagine what she's going through, right? Um, and also, yes, of course, she put herself out there, and of course, you're gonna put your art and your performance out there, and your heart and soul. And but you know, some people are gonna feel a certain way about it, and it's not necessarily about that, but it's more so just about how people suddenly become experts on everything, right? They're like,
Yeah.
that clearly isn't a good way of breakdancing. And when I think of breakdancing, I think it should be like this, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And it's just because everyone had eyes on this thing, right?
Mhm.
And so everyone thinks they're entitled to an opinion and
Mhm.
entitled to have that opinion heard, right? Everyone's entitled to opinion, but
Right.
not everyone's entitled to having their opinion heard and blasted, right?
Right.
And so many people are having their opinion heard and blasted about this to the point that it's like, why? Why is this the discourse around this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with Formula One, where there's this because so many eyes are on it now, right? And you have so many different lenses and viewpoints and perspectives, which on one hand is really good, right? Because
Mhm.
I think we're calling it, there's a lot of attention being focused on things that weren't being paid attention to previously, right?
Right.
Like really bad off track antics and
Mhm.
someone not being a good person. Because
Yeah.
honestly, like when we talk about like cancel culture, right? Cancel culture really isn't effective. It hasn't really worked. Like people like opponents of cancel culture will say that, oh, it's so damaging, all this kind of stuff, right? But it
Mhm.
hasn't really worked on anyone, right? You always think about the people who get canceled, they get quote unquote canceled, right? And then
Yeah.
they're back like a few months later or a year later, or whatever it is, and they're still making tons of money. There's been
Mhm.
no real like financial harm to them, no real harm to them.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a reputation hit, but honestly, they've also gained reputation with another sort of crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I bring this up just to say that um I'm like kind of losing my thread here, but
No,
I think
it's fine.
the reason I'm bringing it up is just because Oh yeah. Bad antics off the track, right? So bad antics off the track, and like that has an effect and impact on how fans view you, right? If they want to
Mm,
support you, right? I think one of the reasons people love Lewis Hamilton is because he is who he is, right? He's authentic. He talks about the things he cares about. He talks about Black Lives Matter. He talks about, he wore the shirt saying "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor," right?
mm,
He's speaking out about LGBT issues and speaking about us racing. I say us like I'm part of the team. Speaking out
mm.
about racing in countries that have terrible human rights records, all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
And people like that. People engage with that kind of stuff, right?
right.
On the flip side, you have someone like Danny Ricardo who's like, oh, that stuff's like, I don't even watch the news and that stuff's just too complicated for me. That's kind of how he comes off in a lot of his interviews whenever he's asked like really tough questions about things going on outside F1. And people don't like that, right? And they're entitled to not like him for that,
Mhm,
right? Again, it's their opinion. Um, but when you get so many people viewing a thing or engaging with the thing, just the context around like any kind of conversation that used to be very minor, right, is just
mm.
automatically going to be different because everyone's at the table now,
Yeah,
and for better or worse. And that's just where we are right now. And
yeah.
where we fall on that side of the equation is we like to just talk about things as if we still exist in that world like 10,
Mm,
15 years ago where F1 media was, but that's not it anymore, right? This is
yeah.
now a world where it's similar to, it's in pop culture. F1 is definitely
Mhm.
pop culture. It's mainstream
It
now.
is, yeah.
So it's going to
And
come with baggage.
it's funny. It's like I almost feel like it's weird, but like part of me almost feels like it doesn't deserve it in a way.
How's,
And this is a
what do you
weird
mean?
thing to say. I mean, this is just from watching like catching myself up with like a history of like IndyCar's biggest race, right?
Hmm.
Watching videos about IndyCars, the IndyCar split, watching all the Daytonas, watching videos about NASCAR history and like NASCAR popularity ebbing and flowing and all the things that
Hmm.
happen with them. And it's weird, it's like the one thread that does go through a lot of that is that the sort of like elitism and like whiff
Hmm.
of some pretentiousness
Oh,
that Formula One had for
would you
so many
say
years.
je ne sais quoi?
Yeah, right. The Senna say quoi. Um, see what I did there. Um, but it's been going on for decades.
Hmm.
I mean, even I mean, NASCAR and IndyCar were not, they love to dig on F1. They love to talk about how like, oh, like I watched an F1 race and like there was only two passes the whole race and like here we've already had like 57. It's like, well, yeah, but you're also on an oval in spec cars, like it's
Hmm.
different. But I feel like they didn't do a very good job of like trying to make themselves feel like a sport for the masses in a way.
Right. Right.
And I feel like now that like the Netflix thing happened and all of a sudden everyone's like, I want the high drama. And F1 is just like trying to like, huh, okay, well, like how do we cater to these normies? We're all a bunch of rich people. It's like, oh well, give them what they want. It's like it feels like I don't
Yeah.
know. It sort of parallels what we've been seeing with like Donut Media and like Car
Mm.
Throttle and like Motor Trend, like all like the where these big like automotive conglomerates that
Hmm.
started out with like a really sort of like grassroots fan based um video content, that
Hmm.
was really good and had a lot of engagement and people
Yeah.
loved and it built their reputation to just being like reviewing Timu things and like not actually doing any car builds, which is like
Hmm.
what people wanted in their
Hmm.
content. And like you see Big Time has only been out for like a few weeks now and they're already like right in the top echelon of like automotive YouTube attention.
Yeah.
And I think it's because like you get to that point to where it's like a snake starting to eat its own tail. It's just like you end up just like it ends up becoming sort of a shell of what it was. And I think like at this point the first few seasons of Netflix Drive to Survive, I mean, I'm really glad that they brought my brother into it, and he
Hmm.
watching the show with him was amazing because I have all this background context that he didn't have.
Hmm.
But now it's just getting to that point where it just feels like I don't know. I worry that it's like trying to do drama for drama's sake or like it's or like you said, like everybody has that opinion. They have like all these couch experts now. And I think it's because, like, you're right, everybody has entitled to an opinion, but it doesn't mean that their opinion is necessarily informed and should be like the
Right.
linchpin for a conversation.
Should have a mic, right?
And that's where you get videos of people like, roping in likes by just like throwing stuff out there. And it's like, I don't want to be part of that scene. Like, I want to, if I'm going to put something, a post out there, like, I want it to be deliberate, having something to say, even if
Mm.
that's just trying to make you laugh. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't want to go on wild speculations without like and like take them that too far. Like, I will speculate and go
Hmm.
wild rants on this
Hmm.
podcast forever, you know, but like, it's still contained to one episode,
Sure.
and then I can be like, if it happens to be true, I can be vindicated. I can be like,
Hmm.
yes, but I'm
Hmm.
not going to go out of my way and make a video necessarily to like try and like, I'm not going to do some high production to try and like get the conversation going, because this is just me. This is just like our rants that we're just like recording. This is
Yeah.
what we've
It's just
always
us.
done. We've
Yeah.
always done this. So yeah, I think like I'm sort of like struggling to deal with a lot of it, because
Mm.
it just feels like sometimes it feels like the engagements or the things that I see online around F1 discourse is sort of uh, I don't know. It feels disingenuine. It doesn't feel genuine to me. It feels too artificial. I'm glad. I love when I see people out there having a good time,
Hmm.
going to races, talking about like the stuff they see, and the stuff that they're into, and like reactions to big drama that happens is
Hmm.
great. But when it's like you're starved for content,
Yeah. And it's
and
digital.
when you're starved for content, that's when it really starts to come through,
Hmm.
because they're just grabbing at straws trying to
Yeah.
find something to get those likes, to keep
Yeah.
themselves preoccupied until the
Hmm.
next news dump or the next
It's like,
race.
oh, I saw Lewis talking to Jos Verstappen. Is something happening there? And it's just like,
Yeah,
he could have just been
yeah.
saying hi, like just
they
walking
they
by him.
oh they had lunch together. Oh man. It's like, I
What does
just
this
like,
mean?
okay, whatever.
Yeah.
They have lunch all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I think like it also just goes right back to what we were saying. This is why we felt like we needed a restructure, because it was just getting kind of suffocating out there. And like, we don't have to worry about necessarily looking for content, because there's
Yeah.
just so much out there that we can try and pull from.
Yeah.
And we can even just pull up news, we can look up things that have been happening in the motorsport world,
Yeah.
and talk about it. That I love the freeing nature of that. I think it's exciting. But that all being said, I think that, right, to sort of kind of wrap up on our episode, we should definitely talk about some F1 and some
Yeah.
IndyCar stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Some fun.
yes,
Let's have
and
some fun.
the first thing I do want to talk about, I guess that really the biggest F1 news is Adrian Newey
Oh my God.
and his possible move to Aston.
Oh
Have you
my
seen
God.
that? Do
Well,
we
is it?
know
I
how
thought
much
it
of
was.
that's?
I thought it's like settled.
I don't know if it's settled, because people are speculating that it's good. Like, they're saying that it's going to be announced, but I haven't seen anything that's like definitive. So I'm like hesitant to confirm specifically. But like, there's all these things about like, why didn't he go to Ferrari? And like, this is, but apparently the deal he got was 400 million over like 4-year period or something like that.
Hmm.
And I guess I did read somewhere that he basically, a lot of part of his move, or a lot of his reasoning for going to Aston over like Mercedes or Ferrari, is that Aston's basically like, bring whoever you want,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Like, you bring your own staff, which yeah, that would be very appealing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think yeah, I think it's an interesting,
Do you like him going there? It's
hey,
funny.
with Daddy Warbucks, I mean, if he's footing the bill, Adrian Newey ain't got nothing to lose. And also, I'm gonna say this too, though. There's a couple of appeals to that. One, Aston Martin is a relatively new. It's like kind of the brand of Aston itself is like relatively new to the sport.
Yeah.
It's shown some signs of success. It's got a big financial backer. And also, being somebody from England, maybe there's some appeal to going with Aston Martin because it's an English brand and it's a very
Hmm.
prestigious English. I mean, there's some
Yeah,
people that say Aston Martin is the Ferrari of England, and I think you can make some arguments about
sure,
that.
sure.
I'd say maybe
Maybe
McLaren's maybe
Lotus.
more
Well,
more
isn't McLaren New Zealand though? Like, I mean, it's just Bruce McLaren was a
Bruce
New Zealander,
McLaren
right?
was from New Zealand, but
Yeah,
McLaren as a racing organization has always been in
yeah.
England.
Well, I mean,
Um,
now they're owned by the Kingdom of Bahrain, but
yeah.
um, I
Well,
guess
we can have a whole discussion about that,
yeah.
honestly.
So I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I feel like with the move to Aston, it's interesting because reading How to Build a Car, right? Adrian
Mhm.
Newey's autobiography, he talks about how he did not care for that experience working with Aston Martin on the Project Valkyrie, that they were very like stodgy, right?
Mhm.
So it's surprising. I honestly always thought Aston would be at the bottom of his list. I always kind of thought Williams would be higher than Aston. So I really didn't even think they had a shot, but they must have said something real nice to him, right? Whether it's his
Mhm.
money, like, oh, whatever they're offering you, triple it, like that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And yeah, being told you can bring in your own team and you can override the technical decisions, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they probably won't announce it. I could see this being true, and it won't be announced until after the season's over, right? Because I think another big shakeup within Red Bull and that being broadcasted is probably the last thing they want to deal with right now.
Mhm.
With because Red Bull's having a pretty, I would say Red Bull's having a pretty rough season in general, right?
Which is crazy
This
considering that
is
they're like
yeah,
still winning.
like on
Yeah, it's
all
weird.
on all fronts, right?
Yeah.
Performance wise, driver wise,
Mhm.
um, like team principal, and then head driver. His father's calling out the team principal all the time.
Mhm. Yeah,
Helmut
I made
Marco
that
just being there.
I made that joke. There's speculation that part of this is a long game to get Max Verstappen over to Aston Martin. And I made
Mm,
that post where I'm just like, it sounds like Lawrence Stroll is looking for another new son. Um,
mm.
um, but uh, but yeah, I don't think I don't think it's settled completely. I mean, I'm not going to completely believe it until I hear it from directly from him. Like there's some official post on one of their pages because at
Mm-hmm.
this point it's still kind of, I think, slightly under wraps. But you know, there's also the speculation that like Alpine is going to be sold. I mean, I guess Renault is like is they're pretty much going to pull out of F1 or something. The Porsche has decided that they're not pursuing any Formula One.
Yeah, they said this chapter is closed.
I'm like, all right.
That's yeah. Mm.
I also heard a rumor that apparently Audi is courting Sebastian Vettel for a possible return, and Vettel has expressed desire to possibly have an F1 comeback.
Interesting. I
So
mean, he really sounded like he was good walking away, right? Because he's like, yeah, let me get back to being with my family and kids, and
yeah,
it's really
do you remember?
grueling on our family
Yeah,
lives, and so I'm
yeah.
surprised to hear that he would walk away from that.
Well, you remember what Lewis said to him, right?
No, what?
Lewis at the time told him he's like, okay, we'll see you later. He's like, F1 always has a way of bringing people back.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's possible.
Hmm.
That I think I would be cool. I mean, a German driver,
If he,
German team,
hey,
that's something.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, real quick, I do want to talk about I wanted to talk about IndyCar a little bit.
yes. Please update
So
me because it sounds like some stuff went
oh
off
yeah,
this weekend. And like,
okay,
what?
yeah. So okay, well, first thing that I saw that happened was Augustine Canapino left Huko's Hollinger Racing. And if you don't remember why that's interesting, and it's because after an incident with uh, um, Theo Percher
Yeah, Teo for sure.
at
Yeah.
Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
um, Theo got a bunch of death threats from Canapino fans.
Mm-hmm.
And Canapino didn't exactly condemn the threats. He was just kind of leaning. He like leaned into it and said he expects an apology for a racing incident. Like nothing that was really anybody's fault.
Dude,
Um,
that's a weird level of machismo right there.
yeah,
That's
yeah. And so he's basically parted ways with the team. Apparently, it was mutual, but I'll leave that up to the armchair experts.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess and Connor Daly got the ride with Catabino, which he Connor Daly is a fan favorite for sure. He's a really nice guy. He
Oh,
never really had too much of a chance to really show himself
hmm
like and show his mettle. So I'm glad that he's given this opportunity again. So I ain't mad
hmm
about it. And then Malukas, who is this vibrant 22-year-old guy, he's like the IndyCar meme king. He's like has the best social media presence of any IndyCar driver. He is going to be racing for AJ Foyt next year, which I think is really
mm
interesting considering that let's just say AJ Foyt racing is a little old fashioned. And I don't know if this means that Santino Ferrucci or Stingray Robb are getting the boot, or if they're just adding a third car. Because that's a thing that's interesting with IndyCar, is that like there are teams who have 4 cars technically. They're just like under different sponsorships, right? So yeah, I don't know if they're just adding a third or if they're kicking somebody, but
mm.
I'm kind of okay with Malukas being there. So yeah, that's all weird, silly season stuff. So St. Louis was a race that happened this weekend.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably it would be worth putting on at some point to watch because it's it's a race for sure. And St. Louis, Missouri tracks an oval. It's kind of short. It's not. It's sort of laid out like Indy is laid out, but it's
hmm
definitely a bit smaller. Um, and essentially there was your normal kind of mixture of incidents. Newgarden had a spin and he saved it. Ed Carpenter ran into Catherine Legge, who
hmm
unfortunately was caught out because she's been doing the ovals. It's super fun to see her in
hmm
her elf car
Yeah.
out there. But basically there was a incident with Malukas was essentially running really, really well. He was in like contention to possibly win the race. And closing down to the last few laps of the race, he gets tagged by Will Power, and it just
Dang.
throws him into the wall, and he's done.
Ugh.
I don't think that was Will's fault necessarily. I think he was just kind of he was excited, he was kind of pushing a position, and I think he just got caught out and hit the wall. So
hmm
pretty hard hit, but he was okay. So it's like 9 laps left, okay, to the end of the race, okay,
hmm
and they do a restart, and you should look up this restart. But essentially, you have McLaughlin, Herta, Power, Rossi, and Grosjean, basically all lined up.
Yeah.
And unlike it will, I guess, sort of like Formula One in a way, like the safety car gets pulled in, and the field sort of acts as the leader is sort of setting the pace for the pace car, right? But the difference is that unlike in Formula One, Newgarden, who is the lead at this point, he can't just take off when he wants to. There is a line you have to cross for when you go to green restart, but you also
hmm
have to wait for the green light to go green before you can
hmm
take off, right? And what happened was somehow there was some concertina effect that happened, and it caused Will Power to like accelerate behind Herta and then slow down. Like they call it checking up. He had
Yeah.
to slow
Yeah.
down because he didn't want to hit him.
hmm
Rossi just boom, smacked his back and flew into the air, and then like pushed him down, and they fell into the wall. And then Grosjean had nowhere to go. He ends up
Oh
hitting in
no.
the back of him, and Will Power was pissed. I mean, I could read some lips. He was throwing F bombs everywhere. It was crazy. He was livid. And they asked him, like, what happened? He just like, I don't know. It's like the dude out front was stopping and going, stopping and going. I don't know what to do. It's like I knew I was gonna get hit the minute I had to check up. And Rossi just flew over him. And I watched all of the like videos, and
Yeah.
the controversy comes in because Newgarden insists that he
Dude.
didn't do anything wrong. McLaughlin claims that he had some hybrid deployment issues.
hmm
Herta got a front row seat, and he said that Newgarden basically was playing dirty. Because the
mm
idea is that Newgarden didn't there was a speculation that maybe he was riding the brakes while keeping his engine going to
Yeah.
slow the car down, but then have the
Have
RPMs
the
up so that
like
he
the,
can
yep.
just get it.
Yep.
But what happened was he slowed down, and McLaughlin actually hit him in the back. Like he actually bumped him right before the green happens, and I think that caused like the concertina effect, and caused them. So I think what was happening was that Newgarden was sort
Mm.
of slowing up deliberately, whether he was trying to back the field up, but even still, like
He was trying to get
he
an
he
engine
he started
advantage.
like he kind of
Yeah.
like herky jerkied his way to the
Hmm.
go, and that caused an accident.
Mm.
He ended up going off to win the race. Um, but everyone was
Jeez.
really, really mad. They were also very, very mad because the optics of a Penske driver not getting a penalty for something that he probably caused, at least according to what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
Um, but he didn't get a penalty by the people who also own his race car, because Penske also owns IndyCar, not only just
Mm.
his team. And so yeah, there was a lot
It's a
of anger, but it was also
yeah.
like you listen to Newgarden's reaction, it does not seem genuine. He's just like, well, I don't know, I mean, like they were like, it was weird, like they were like the green, like I think it hesitated, I don't know. And it's just like, oh my god, dude, you know what you did. Like you know what I mean? Like, and Will Power, he like flipped off Newgarden, like he was
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was wild. I would say I would definitely look at the highlights of that and see, because it was bonkers. But
Yeah. Absolutely. He's
lots of weird stuff happening in IndyCar right now.
mm. Mm.
Um but yeah, I'm excited. Portland races next weekend. So for some reason they didn't mail me my parking pass, so that's annoying.
Mm.
Hopefully I get it within the next few days, but if I don't, I'm just gonna have to like carpool in and like walk all the way down the tower and then get it and
Hmm.
then just have it for the next day. So I feel like I'm losing.
But
It's like you buy a parking pass for 3 days and then I can't use it for a day because USPS didn't forward my mail. So
yeah, that's they don't have like a digital pass? Like doesn't
not for
even
parking, because you have to put it in the thing. I have
oh,
my
so you can't even
tickets.
like can you
Yeah.
show like, hey, I actually purchased it, but it's not
I
here yet?
can. Yeah, I can, but I physically have to go there on like the weekend in order to
Hmm.
get it. Like I'm gonna call them tomorrow just to see if there's any way I can like get it earlier, like if they have some satellite office I could go
Yeah,
to or
that's what I'm
something.
saying. Yeah.
I'm gonna try calling them and see what they say, because I
Yeah.
just don't, it would be because like I'm paid for the parking pass for 3 days. It
Right,
doesn't. It would
exactly.
be, you know, I could
Unless
I could go to the ticket booth if I could show up with my car, get the pass, and then circle back around to get to the infield.
hmm
But I'm just gonna end up waiting in traffic, and it's gonna be a whole thing. So
yeah.
I just gotta figure that all that out. But I'm just gonna give them a
That
call
or
today.
maybe if they can give you like an in-kind like refund, right? Like, oh, the value of the parking pass for today is this, so here's a t-shirt or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
to make up for it. So
yeah. I'm gonna talk.
um
I'm gonna call them and see what they can do. So
yeah. No, that's dope.
whatever.
That's dope. So yeah, guys, expect some fun updates next week as
Mhm.
we unveil and debut the official relaunch of the pod, and got some cool stuff cooking for you guys, and
Yeah.
it should be really refreshing and fun. And you're gonna see some different sides of us as far as what we're able to talk about, because we got some sizzling hot fajitas on a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, and honestly too, like if anybody, like if you're listening and you're curious about all of this, like, and if you have any suggestions about things you want to hear us talking about in the motorsport world specifically, let us know.
Yeah.
We're always down to take suggestions. Like if there's some racing video game you want me to do a deep dive into, if I haven't already played it, like yeah, let me know. I'll look
Yeah.
into it. Because I definitely want to have some conversations about my thoughts on some gaming franchises for sure. So
Yeah. And we
that'll
we
be
got
part of
them.
it. We got them.
Do you want to?
um,
Sorry, go ahead.
should we do the intro to get today
Uh,
together monochromatically at the same time? Just read it verbatim.
All right, let's see if we can do this. All
All
right,
right.
let's see. Let's see. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up.
Just completely verbatim.
All right.
Also, don't say X, just say Twitter.
Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah. Dude,
Okay.
everyone just needs to call it Twitter. It's gonna
Yeah.
piss Elon off, and it's great. All
Yeah.
right, you ready?
Yeah. Yep.
1, 2, 3. Hey
Hey
everyone.
everyone. Thanks
Thanks
for
for listening
listening
to
to
F1
F1
or
or
F
F. You go
off.
faster than that.
Okay. You can
You can
find us
find us
anywhere you
anywhere
listen to
you listen to
podcasts.
podcasts.
This is not
This is
working
terrible. This is terrible
because it's like you're
audio.
talking. There's like a delay, right? Like,
Hmm. I'll
all
read
right.
it backwards.
How
You
about
read it
this? How about this?
forwards, and then we'll stop in the middle word.
All right. So I'm gonna go backwards, and you go from the front. friends and
Okay.
family with
Hey,
share
everyone.
to
Thanks
share
for
be and
listening to
lot.
F1 or F
Hey,
off. You can
out
find us
us
anywhere
helps
you
really
listen to
bad.
podcasts.
Podcast
If you
yours
want to hit us up, you
review
can
wherever review star
and
5
TikTok,
a us
YouTube,
give
and Twitter
dot
at
com
F1
gmail
or
at
F
podcast
off.com. Email
off
us at F1
or
or
one
F off
f
podcast
at
at
us. There we go.
gmail.com.
The transition happened.
I'm sure
So
everyone's just
stupid.
like, okay, that's enough. But he's like, turned it off. It's like, we're done.
Off f or one f at Twitter and
Yeah,
QBU
I'm just,
Toctic Grim
yeah,
Insta.
sniff.
They get our Kendrick Lamar going. But yeah, no, y'all, it's been dope. It's been fun. You'll see us in a
Hmm.
week.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
we're not going anywhere. It's just a new name.
We're just gonna, we're gonna take F1 and we're just gonna put it on this table, and then we're gonna
We're gonna
put
take it
some other
off.
stuff on the table.
Yeah, we're gonna take
We're
it off the table.
we've been eating nothing but mashed potatoes and gravy for like a couple of years, and now we're gonna have some turkey and we're gonna have some green beans because it can't
Yes,
all be about
it
mashed
can't.
potatoes.
It can't be. You will die.
Mashed potatoes are fantastic, but like it's better in context with other food.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yep.
is
Yep. Excellent. All right. Thank you all. We'll see you soon. Peace.
peace.